Greetings! We're here in the Oregon Cascades taking a quick look at a very common and well-known plant here in these forests, Oregon grape. Now you know it, I know it, we all know it, but we all know the one thing about it is that it isn't a grape. And it may have sort of grape-looking fruits on it once these yellow flowers turn into their fruit, but they're not very much fun to eat, as you probably know if you've tried to eat Oregon grapes, quote-unquote. It's not a whole lot of fun. They're kind of bitter and kind of gross. They may have a little bit of vitamin C, but it's hard to get past the flavor. And it's also kind of hard to get past it when you're walking around the forest in sandals or bare feet, because they've got these little spines on every single leaf. Every leaf has a whole bunch of little needle-like spines, kind of like holly, only it grows on the ground, and it grows in massive abundance. I mean, you almost can't even help but see. There's just carpets of it. There are millions and millions and millions of Oregon grape individuals all across these forests. And that makes it very common and therefore very useful, because you're not pulling up a wild plant if you're going to use it medicinally, which you can with Oregon grape. Now, I did mention some vitamin C, and yeah, there is vitamin C in it, but again, there's a kind of a not so happy flavor along with that vitamin C. So what other medicinal or useful aspects does it have? Well, it has a compound in it that is actually proven to be antimicrobial. And that means that it's effective for all sorts of things where microbes are a problem, whether it's, gosh, I've even read people using it for giardia. You're like, wow, so, viruses, protozoa, bacteria, all sorts of stuff that it can actually fight. And it also is a potent anti-inflammatory. This compound is called berberine, or berberine, however you want to pronounce it. And that compound, found in the root of this plant, not necessarily the leaves, it's kind of a weird, funny, kind of smelling, chemically bitter smell, but it's actually been proven to work against psoriasis. And you can find commercial preparations of psoriasis cream containing extract of Oregon grape. Now, where do you get that? Well, you're going to have to dig it up. But being common, you don't have to worry about anybody screaming at you about, killing these native plants or anything. But they have these, if I can get one up, long running roots, as you can see. They kind of tend to go really long. And I can't even get this one up. But this actually gives us a look at it. This yellow inner bark, not the brown, and if you scrape past this with a knife or something, you're going to get to the white inner root. You don't want that. You want this yellow part, and that's where you're going to get the berberine, or berberine. Pardon me, I don't know how to pronounce it. And that compound, you only need a few teaspoons of it in a cup of tea, and you take that for a couple of days, and it should cure what ails you. But that yellow compound, or that yellow part of the root, is also useful as a dye, and native peoples would use it for a dye. So it's kind of neat to know. Okay, well, you can get some use out of it. It's not just a bunch of spines that get into your fingers or into your feet when you're walking through these forests, but it's actually pretty cool to think that not only does it have antimicrobial aspects, it can actually help fight inflammation, and it can also stop your psoriasis in its tracks. That's just amazing. And if you want to, you can even make a yellow dye out of its roots. But I will warn you, I've tried to work with it a little bit, and this yellow compound will turn your fingers yellow. So you might want to wear gloves if you don't want yellow fingers after working with trying to get some yellow dye, or use the inner sort of inside of the bark there to get the berberine compound to help with your whatever ails you. And it's a pretty handy plant to know, and it's easy to know. Everybody knows Oregon grape. Like I said, you know it, I know it. We're all super familiar with our not a grape Oregon grape. But being so common and so abundant, you don't have to worry about gathering too much, because you don't really need to take it more than a couple days. And they do warn you that not everybody can handle it, so you might not want to, upset your stomach with, days and days of taking, the root tea. But if you want to extract it for the berberine for compounds, you'll have to use like an alcohol extraction apparently, and that takes time, and it's not the sort of thing that I can really do living on the road or, in dispersed campsites like I am here in the forest. But that doesn't mean that I can't make a little tea out of it, and if I have a stomach upset because I thought maybe I got some bad water, or maybe I just am not doing so good, you never know. Just because a plant isn't necessarily food doesn't mean it's completely useless, and just because it's medicine doesn't mean it's not necessarily food. And Oregon grape is definitely a handy one to know if you happen to need some of its medicinal benefits. But again, having a little vitamin C means it's got a little bit of an extra use to it besides being dye and medicine. You can actually kind of boost your immune system. We all could use a little bit of extra C. Who couldn't? And if you wanted to, you could put some pine needles or something like that into it to boost the C even more. But it's certainly a worthy plant to know, and it's easy, like I said, easy enough to know. Everybody knows Oregon grape. You know it, I know it, and I definitely want to thank you so much for taking a quick look at a very common and well-known plant, but less well-known medicinal plant, Oregon grape.